Welcome one and welcome all to Nizira's Bookshelf. This new series is where I will review books that I've read and put them in my own personal ranking system. Literary masterpieces go in God tier. Fantastic but flawed books go in great tier. Enjoyable but heavily flawed books go in good tier. Boring or mediocre books go in mid tier, and absolute literary dumpster fires go in trash tier. The books that I'm going to talk about with you guys today is one of, if not my favorite book trilogy of all time, The Folk of the Air by Holly Black. I have to warn you that I'm going to be spoiling the entire series, so if you haven't read it, what are you doing watching this video? Go read it. But if you have read it, great. Let's dive in, shall we? So, the first book in the series is The Cruel Prince. It follows a girl named Jude Duarte after she gets kidnapped and brought to the fairy world called Elfhame, along with her two sisters, Vivi and Taryn. And after facing years of mistreatment from the very asshole fairies, she strives to improve her status by becoming a knight, but she ends up on a collision course with the fairy prince Carden, our cruel prince in question. In the second book, The Wicked King, Jude installs Carden as a puppet ruler of Elfhame until her younger brother is old enough to ascend to the throne himself, because he's the rightful heir. But secretly, she's doing all his work for him as his seneschal. She also discovers a plot to take over Elfhame conducted by Carden's estranged brother, Balkin, and Orla, the Queen of the Undersea, who's also the mother of one of Carden's best friends. It's a pretty complicated situation. Anyway, the third book and the last book, The Queen of Nothing, is about Jude, who's been exiled by Carden shortly after their marriage, more on that later, and she plots her revenge on him, but also has to deal with her adopted father plotting to take over Elfhame. So if you couldn't tell from the very chaotic synopses I just described, this series is messy. And by messy, I don't mean like it has a messy story or messy writing. I mean messy as in salacious, juicy, scandalous. Because the fairies in this series, they be doing all types of crazy shit just for the LOLs. And no other character does that more than my Wicked King / Cruel Prince Carden. Now, Carden and Jude's relationship, I'm gonna need to talk about that in a second, but it's messy. Most of these characters are messy. There's don't really like there's good and evil in this series. Our heroine, Jude, she's an anti-hero, an amazing anti-hero. She's been treated like these fairies punching bags because she's a human, and fairies don't like humans. They treat humans as playthings, and Jude had to learn that at a very young age. But when she ends up getting wrapped up with Carden, she somehow manages to make him a puppet ruler, and she's the one who actually has the real power, because he could not care less about ruling a kingdom. He just wants to get drunk all day. And you know what, King? I understand that. Well, I don't understand getting drunk. I don't understand getting drunk. I understand not wanting to work because his family sucks. But these fairies, they're always doing they can put people under hypnosis. They like to. I don't support drinking, but they like to get humans drunk and bring them to balls and hurl insults at them. Like, these fairies, they're cruel, they're wicked, but they make it so interesting. And also, this takes place in the fairy court, so these are rich fairies that we're dealing with. I said before in the previous video that I love rich white people mess, but it turns out I just love rich people mess in general, or fantasy creature mess. I love seeing nobles and rich people just being messy, causing chaos, and looking fab, and also getting away with it because, they're rich. Okay, next. Oh boy. So within the YA sphere, Jude and Carden have become a very polarizing couple, because even though I am staunchly against the bully to lovers trope, I kind of have to make an exception for these two, because Carden was a menace to society in the first book, yes, but he redeemed himself, in my opinion. Now, but I have to bring up something. Something I hate that the fandom does for these books is that they try to romanticize and excuse the bad things that Carden did to Jude in the first book. These buffoons are like, OMG, he threw her into a lake because he's too shy to talk to her. Aww. And I'm just like, shut up. That is not why he did that. And you know it. Stop being dumb. But regardless of all that, I love these two. They do not have easy, they don't have easy lives. They do not have a simplistic romance. Their relationship is very, very complicated. And both of these two hate each other for wanting each other so bad. And the sexual tension is palpable, but it's also kind of frustrating because I'm just like, there are so many scenes where I'm just like, just kiss already. The suspense was killing me. Also, along with using Kari as a puppet ruler, Jude also keeps a lot of secrets from him, like getting information from his deadbeat mother and his abusive brother really came back to bite her in the butt. But I love Jude. Jude becomes less and less trustworthy throughout the series, but I love that because it was so satisfying to see her outsmart all these asshole fairies after they did nothing but treat her like a punching bag for so long. And also, I understand her inability to trust Carden because old boy was doing way too much in the first book. But I have to get in on Jude just a little bit because of her oblivious to Carden's feelings for her got on my nerves because it is kind of annoying at times. For example, in the second book, Jude asks Card to seduce Orla's daughter Acacia to see if he can get some information from her about her mother Orla's evil plot to take over Elfheim. Card gets offended that she even asked him to do this because Jude can't see that clearly this boy is simping for her. So he starts to practice his wiles on Jude, kissing her and touching her all hot and heavy. I legit thought that these two were about to get it on, but unfortunately, they don't because Holly Black hates me. Though we do get this funny line from Jude because she says that out of all the cruel things that he's done to her over the years, making her like him is the worst. Oh, baby girl, you got it bad. Now, these two shocked me when they got married at the age of 17, but what shocked me even more was that Carden exiled Jude just for the LOLs. Like, he is my toxic king, but I'm glad these two had a happy ending. And also, I appreciate Carden because he brings good mess as well. Next. One big qualm I have about this series is that they have very uninteresting villains. You see, Jude and Carden are anti-heroes. So the other villains in this book, they got a lot to step up to. I don't mean like Jude and Carden; they are not more evil than the three primary antagonists of the series: Baelkin, Carden's evil half brother; Maddox, Jude's adoptive father; and Orla, the Queen of the Undersea. These characters, though, they are evil. They are evil. Jude and Carden, I don't believe are evil. They're just like they just do cruel things, and they're both well, Jude is ambitious and power hungry. Carden, he's a trickster. He's a troublemaker. Um, Both have tragic backstories. Both got a lot of trauma. Madog, Baelkin, and Orla, well, they're just power hungry rulers, and they all want the throne of Elfheim. Um, so here's the thing. About Madog. When I first met Madog, he's kind of evil because he's the one who kidnapped Jude, Vivian, and Taryn when they were kids and brought them to the fairy world after he murdered their parents. For some reason, my dumbass was surprised that he became one of the primary villains of this show because he was actually a loving father figure towards them instead of being horribly abusive. I was very shocked when that happened, but I was even more shocked when he became a villain because I was kind of disappointed because I'm not really interested in his plan to take over Elfheim. Orla also, in my opinion, was pretty forgettable. I don't really remember what she did besides kidnap Jude. Baelkin is probably the best villain in the series because he's a pretty cliche villain. Like he was the king of Elfheim's eldest son. The king didn't like him, and he's jealous of his younger brother Carden. He abused Carden really badly, and now that Carden's on the throne, even though Jude is technically the real ruler, Baelkin, he got in jail because he murdered the High King and his other siblings. And Baelkin seeing Carden on the throne, I know that must have pissed him off. So he hooks up with Orla, not hook up, but he starts working with Orla to take over Elfheim. Maddox has his own team. He's not working with Orla. It's like Maddox versus Orla and Baelkin versus Carden and Jude. It's a whole mess. Carden and Jude are such very strong characters that they carry this entire series on their backs. That doesn't mean the other characters aren't interesting. It just means a lot of them pale in comparison to anything not involving Jude and Carden, in my opinion. I was mostly in this series for them. But Baelkin actually he's actually a pretty good, interesting character because there is this very, very jarring scene in The Wicked King, where Jude gets kidnapped by Orla. She's in the undersea, and when Belkin comes to interrogate her, she has to pretend that she's under hypnosis so that he doesn't know that she's actually temporarily immune to fairy hypnosis. And he makes her kiss him. I was listening to the audiobooks for these books, and I swear me and Jude both said, "What?" at the same time. Because, what? I don't know what to make of that scene. I don't ship it at all because, ew, Belkin is a nasty man. I think he just did that because, he's jealous of Carden. But on a side note, the fact that even Belkin can see that Carden and Jude have the hots for each other is kind of hilarious when you actually think about it. But also, something I gotta bring up is the ridiculous way that Belkin died. Okay, so he and Jude were having this sword fight, and Jude, being the bad bitch that she is, cut his throat with her sword. But while she was swinging her blade at his throat, this fool decides that he's gonna surrender. And while he was in the middle of saying, "Wait, I surrender," he died. He got killed. I hate that scene because I actually felt kind of bad for him. But at the same time, I can't fault my girl Jude for doing what she had to do because, first of all, nobody told Belkin's dumbass to surrender at the last minute. What was he thinking doing that? Like, she can't stop the blade while she's swinging it. I can't blame Jude for that. And then when Carden finds out about this, he exiles Jude. Not because, he misses his brother, because his brother was an abusive asshole. He did it because he's a little shit. He's my toxic king. He likes to mess with Jude because he's the cruel prince / the wicked king. And I love him for that. Jude get the scene where Jude got exiled. That was so funny. Jude is my girl, but it was so messy and it was so funny. I love mess where I see mess, even if my favorite character has to suffer. Okay? Okay, next. So my ranking goes as follows. The Cruel Prince is a god tier book. It's dark, it's filled with so many twists and turns, and the growth of our heroine from a fairy punching bag to the de facto queen of Elfhame is legend behavior. The Wicked King is also a god tier book. It's not dark like The Cruel Prince, but the dynamic between Jude and Carden becomes the lifeline of this series, and this book especially is where they shine. All the core intrigue makes this a very captivating read. Though I don't know if I love The Wicked King more than The Cruel Prince, I do think that The Wicked King is the best installment of the series, but I'm not sure if it's my favorite. But The Cruel Prince might always be my favorite. And as for The Queen of Nothing, I'm gonna have to put this in great tier. It is a satisfying finale and a great book, but the ending with Carden turning into a giant snake was just a little too odd for me. This series will always hold a special place in my heart. The many twists and turns that it takes kept me on the edge of my seat. The world is fascinating. The characters are unique. The story is amazing. Overall, the Folk of the Air trilogy is a god tier series. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye!